Is the audio good? Hopefully that didn't blow out your ears or anything. Yeah, see, you're right. Really what it comes down to is I don't have a stream starting screen. Okay, cool. I don't have a stream starting screen, so the game serves it. It gives us the entire point of a starting screen is it gives some time for people to like come in. So yeah, and I didn't want to put the audio back because I had the game open before stream and I didn't want it blasting my ears because I didn't want to hear it. So, but I also didn't want to turn back on because I started stream before I turned the audio back on. And I was like, oh, well, I guess it's just going to be off for a couple minutes. But yeah, welcome to the stream. It seems the audio is good. Why am I down here? Don't tell me I had to cancel it. Okay. But yes, today we're playing Wargroove. It's going to be probably like an hour-long stream. I think that's a fitting amount of time for Wargroove. And then after that we'll be good. But today was a good lineup. A good lineup because I finished a book today. And that book happened to be a part of a long saga that I started earlier this year. So I am going to talk about that today. Because it is a doozy. There's no way that I'm going to be done talking about it by the end of today. I might make a full video about all of them because it's a doozy. It's doozy. It's a little relevant as well. Not to this, like timely relevant. But we're busy being interlopers.
The hunt. Sage hungers.
So, are these... What did I read? I'm going to talk about Shadow. Let's let the people on the screen talk. Because apparently this person's going to eat us. I think that's vital information. Literally a gremlin. What a rude question mark. It's a florin, which I feel like is a very flowery name for I assume an omnivore. Okay. Maybe this is like... Dog. Dog. I appreciate the what the heck. It's very nice of you. Okay, so I think this is either the first real match or one of the last tutorial matches because we're finally seeing Fog of War and dog.
Yes.
Dogs. 1, 2, 3. We should use our battle pups to scout ahead. Okay. So our battle. So the dogs, scouts. I assume. Oh. Dog. Oh, dogs can move. Oh well. Go, doggy. Oh, doggy. Okay, the only problem having dog units is you have to put dogs into battle. Nice. I'm assuming dogs cannot take places. That is my assumption. Okay, let's do this. Okay. Okay, great turn. What? Oh, I see.
A tactical advantage.
Okay. Let's talk about the book. Because it looks like we are actually out of the tutorial phase. Aha. You thought you could trick me. So the series that I finished was Dune. Dune, the sci-fi, I guess, classic. Being a, I think 70s. I could fact check this, but I'm not going to. Yes, it was Dune. So if you don't know, Dune is a... Huh? What just happened? Oh, the dog just runs away. That's cute. The dogs don't actually get hurt. They just run. Smart. That was a good choice. Okay. What happened here? Do you have some ability? It was weird. They like had an exclamation mark and then they... Okay.
I have a spell for this.
Damn. But yeah, the dogs are great. It's the reason we're playing the game, to be honest. Not actually, but they are definitely making it better. And the best part, there's dogs in every faction. It's just a unit type. All kinds of dogs. Oh, these units are kind of slow. Okay. But yeah, if you don't know already, Dune is a 6-book... Is it like a saga? But regardless, it's a 6-book series by Frank Hubert. It's a sci-fi series. It's probably like the definitive sci-fi series. And until recently, Dune had not had a good adaptation. There was only like, I think there was a show that no one talks about, and then there was the movies that everyone, or the movie that everyone talks about being not great, because it's like completely tonally different than the actual series. Indie Fire Emblem. Wrong. I'm reminded of the meme where it's like, say the first syllable. Fire Emblem? Wrong. This is Indie... It's kind of weird saying Indie Advanced Wars, because Advanced Wars was a Game Boy game. It wasn't like a console series. And then it was like, funnily enough, Advanced Wars, which was named... Okay, let's break this down. Advanced Wars is actually a part of a larger series called the Wars series, and this included other console-specific wars, like, we'll call them spin-offs. It actually started with, there was Game Boy Wars before Advanced Wars. Advanced Wars was named after the Game Boy Advanced, and before the Game Boy, so before Advanced Wars, the normal Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, of course, had Game Boy Wars, which were never officially translated into English, and they don't have... I haven't even started on Dune, it's okay. This is more relevant, so it's alright. We'll get to Dune. There's 6 books, and trust me when I say, if I talk about it for an hour, we won't even scratch the surface. Game Boy Wars is... It's, gameplay-wise, very similar to Advanced Wars. The difference is, like, style. Advanced Wars has these, like, it's basically known for its, like, its characters, its art, and its gameplay. Game Boy Wars only has the gameplay part. Because, well, one, it's not the Game Boy Advance, it's the Game Boy. So it has a lot less of the, well, the color. Has a lot less... That's mostly it, is the color. It also doesn't have, like, characters like Advanced Wars has. Like, you know, we have Andy, Max, Sam, Olaf. I can see all of their faces, but I can't remember their names. But you have all these characters, and all of these characters have, like, different powers. Like, Andy can repair things. Like, what? The Queen of Cherry? Cherry word? Cherry something. In this game, it's her abilities based on Andy's ability in Advanced Wars. Sam also has, like, double time where her troops are, and her troops are faster and they capture double the amount. And they're also stronger. Max just makes it so everything that directly hits is stronger. And then they also have, like, characteristics, like Sam's infantry captures things better. All of that is Advanced Wars. The core gameplay, like units and stuff. Andy, yeah, he's basically a combat medic. is what Andy is. And he's also like the protagonist, and he's like a shonen protagonist. And that's the other thing, is like the story is closer to what this is. Game Boy Wars doesn't have a story. And before Game Boy Wars was... Let me bring it up. Where is it? Best way to find is like Nintendo Wars. Oh, before Game Boy Wars was Famicom Wars, which is obviously on the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. And that's how the series started, is Famicom Wars. Then there's Game Boy Wars, then Super Famicom Wars, which is on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Oh! So all of those games, Japanese only, all the way till Game Boy Wars 3. And all those games are pretty similar. This was from the era of games where you would have like Game Boy Wars 2, but Game Boy Wars 2 was just an enhanced version of Game Boy Wars 1. Which is the same sort of scheme as Rave Racer? Rave? No, that sounds wrong in my... Ridge Racer. Oh. Ridge Racer, where Ridge Racer 1 is in Ridge Racer 2, and actually a bunch of other versions of Ridge Racer are all the same game. They're just enhanced and altered on each iterative release. And like the map is different in each one. Oh, sorry. So then Advance Wars came out, and it was like completely tonally different. It seems what happened was Intelligent Systems, who developed, or who still develop, Fire Emblem. Let's see, I think they developed a few. Let's see, Famicom Wars. Okay, so Famicom Wars was Intelligent Systems. I think what happened is that through Famicom and the Game Boy Wars games, so the early Wars games, they just went through like gameplay. They were just strategy, like this. They were this. They were just strategy games. But during a period of time, a lot of the Game Boy Wars games that came out weren't developed by Intelligent Systems, because Intelligent Systems actually develop a lot of different games. One of them, as I mentioned, Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem was pretty successful, and I think what happened was they decided, hey, we're developing Fire Emblem and it's doing pretty well. What if we take what we learned from Fire Emblem and shove that into the Wars series that we had? Because if they just kept going with the same gameplay and just like tweaking it, it wasn't going to get very far. They would have had to make like drastic changes. Or they can kind of do like the opposite, which is when it comes to like sequels, you either, okay, you add things or you change it up. And so they changed it up and they modeled it closer to Fire Emblem, which is why you have the characters. It's like, but this is also kind of like a strategy game thing. More likely with the whole like, oh, there's factions and then there's like leaders in the factions. That is not stripped from like SRPGs. That's stripped from a very close genre to this, which is RTS games, real-time strategy games like StarCraft. So yeah, the War series is a part of a of a bigger series. And this entire discussion is to essentially say, the Game Boy series, Advanced Wars, was not only on the Game Boy Advanced. Probably for a good reason, because there's actually two Advanced Wars, not just Wars, Advanced Wars games on the Nintendo DS, which is Advanced Wars Dual Strike and Advanced Wars Day of Ruin. And I believe Days of Ruin is the one people don't like. And of course there's one on the Switch as well, but that's a remake of the actual Game Boy Advanced Wars games. But there's also Battalion Wars, which is like a completely different game entirely, and that's on the Wii. But yes, there are Advanced Wars games that are not on their namesake console. They are on the DS. One of them is apparently pretty bad. Anyways, tangent over. Let me actually play the game again. I need to get better at playing the game and talking. Dune. Oh, you made it. Today we're talking about my favorite book series, Dune. I'm being a jokester. It's definitely a book series. It's not my favorite. So, Dune's a really weird series because it is tonally not consistent. Actually, no. Tonally, it's consistent. It's really hard to describe. Let's see. It is... So, the tone of the series is consistent. The themes of the series are pretty consistent. The writing's mostly consistent, with a few caveats. And that's mostly dialogue. What's not consistent is when you're reading Dune, every book makes you feel completely differently. It's like you don't know what genre, besides sci-fi of course, you don't know what genre the book is going to be until you're like halfway through it. Because you pick up the first one, and the first book, I wouldn't say it's like a typical sci-fi adventure, because it's a very interesting one, but it is pretty structured like you would expect. It's like, you know, the hero's journey. Paul basically is thrown out of his typical life. He goes through these trials and tribulations. There's a climax, and then he has the elixir at the end. It's pretty easy to map out. It's the details in the first book that are like the interesting parts. It's the world building, the character interactions, the history underneath everything that's going on. It's a lot of like the combat and things that happen in specific. It's like the scenes where everyone's sitting at a table and Jessica, Paul's mother, is looking around and just reading everyone's expressions and their mannerisms, and there'll be some dialogue, and then you'll read the mannerisms surrounding how they said things. Like, so that's kind of the appeal of the first book, is that while the story is good, the characters are really good, It's just every detail is fine-tuned to show you the world with how it is. And sometimes it's gross, it's grotesque. Actually, it's very oftentimes grotesque. And that's kind of Dune in a nutshell, is it's trying to peel back the layer of its own world to show you. That's why the first book is one of my favorite books of all time, or that I've read so far. If that changes, I'll tell you. But it's a great book, and I would highly recommend anyone read the first book. It's the rest of the books that are the problem, because that book is like, okay, this is a sci-fi adventure. It's not really an adventure because you stay on the same planet, but it's basically a sci-fi adventure. Hero's journey. Star Wars was influenced by it. If you mapped out the events of the story, it would make complete sense. No matter, even though it's pretty large as a book. Now, where the issues come into play is, for whatever reason, the author had a big issue, really big issue, with people believing that Paul, the main character of the first book and the second book, was a hero. So there is going to be a bit of a spoiler warning, because there's literally no way around this. Being that I'm going to be talking about the series at large and sequels to the first book. So you have 2 minutes from now. Stop hiding in the trees. So yeah, you have until 32 or 02 if you're in one of the time zones where it's 30 minutes different. Not the dogs. No.
Huh?
Yes.
Cherry stone, a powerful projective object.
What?
Oh. Thanks, bud. Dog attack. I don't like your attitude. Oh. Actually, I'm gonna put another minute on there. My voice is tired. 33 or 03. Oh. Break. Voice break. I wonder how this game handles collisions. Oh, that must have been what happened to that unit, when there's the green exclamation point. Okay. I will... How big is this map? There we go. Alright. Okay, it's 33. Let me capture this. Okay. So. Okay, just warning you. I don't care about spoiling anything for the rest of the stream. So, you don't want to be spoiled. It's not going to be... I can't... Okay, here's the thing. Dune is a lot like JoJo. I can spoil a lot. I can, like, literally tell you what happens, and it doesn't really matter. Because if I tell you that in part 5 of JoJo, I don't even know how to, like, explain the scene I'm thinking of. It's like, if I tell you that Giorno in part 5 of JoJo has a Requiem stand at the end, it doesn't really matter. Because that's not really... You know? And also, like, as I just experienced, even if there were parts that I could try to, like, explain, I couldn't. Like, it would take me forever to figure out how to explain what happens. Especially since it's been a while since I've seen the scene. So, in Dune, in part 1, or the first book, Dune, Paul is Muhadi. He is essentially, he's kind of the quote-unquote chosen one, or at least that's what a lot of people interpreted it as when he came out. He's like this prophesized leader of the Freeman people, who are the natives of Dune, the planet, which is a desert wasteland whose one value to the universe is the most valuable thing, which is spice. And spice, which isn't really explained really as deeply as maybe it should have been, but I think spice, it's been so long since I read the first book. Spice almost comes off as a MacGuffin in the first Dune book. Even though it's like super valuable, but you don't really know the extent of its value. But it's obviously valuable, because like there's a scene in the first part of the first book, and if you don't know, the first book has 3 separate parts. It's like 600 pages. But in the first part of the first book, you see people mining spice. And spice basically comes out in like these... It's almost like a sand pool. And so it's like this quicksand pit of spice. And so you can take this extractor, put it on top of it, and like mine it. And one of the problems with spice mining is that it makes a lot of noise. And there's something in the desert that doesn't like noise. And that's what everyone knows about Dune, which is the worms. And so these giant worms, which I think the movie does a really good job of showing, like, the size that Dune tries to, like, actually convey, just how big these worms are, like, described as in the book. Oh, I lost my train of thought. That's not good. I just got started. Oh. But yeah, so in this scene, the extractor basically is destroyed by the worm. Because the people were like, hey, we can make it, we can make it, we can make it, we can get as much spice as possible. To the point where they were like risking their lives. And so spice is definitely valuable, but the reason it's valuable is it actually prolongs your life extensively. As in, like, people are living for hundreds upon hundreds of years, and they look young. This is It's also used for all space travel. In the first book, you cannot travel without navigators using spice. Otherwise, they won't be able to choose the right route. And so it's used for all travel. It's essentially a life prolonger, and even furthermore, especially for the Bene Gesserit, it is a cure-all. Because I probably am going to pronounce their name wrong a million times. The Bene Gesserit are immune to diseases entirely, because they consume spice on a daily. And most people who have the money and can afford spice do. And so spice is, when you hear references about how valuable it is, like, it's literally keeping the universe together. And Dune is literally the only place that has it. And so in the beginning of the series, the universe is really locked down to Dune and some other planets, because if you think about it, humanity literally cannot go anywhere without Dune. So if they get too far from it, what are they gonna do? Because they don't know how else to manufacture spice. There's like theories that has to do with the worms on Dune, but they don't know. And so Dune starts off as a very isolated story, which is great for the first book. Fantastic for the first book, because it means you're on one planet and a very descriptive writer has control of this planet. There are scenes in the first book that don't take place on Dune, but they're very confined. Like there's a scene of the arena on another planet. I don't remember which one it is. It might be Gaiety Prime? But it's just that arena. And then there's scenes of the Emperor. I believe there's scenes of the Emperor before he arrives in the last act. But yes, in this book, Paul is the prophesized one. He is not only prophesized by the Freeman to basically be their savior, but he's also prophesized by the Bene Gesserit as the, I cannot pronounce. I know the last part's Haderach, but the first part is like, what? It's like KW. I would need to hear it in order to pronounce it. Or if you've seen the trailer of the actual like movie that's out, you'll probably have a better chance of pronouncing it than I will. Let's reinforce my dogs. I need more units, probably. So, Paul is the prophesized one from multiple different angles. And so, as a typical reader, you would not be incorrect in most cases to assume that Paul is the hero. Especially since Paul overthrows an oppressive government by the end of the book. Especially since the oppressive government happens to be super evil. The Harkonnens? Doesn't matter. They're like grotesque to the max, on purpose. Like, they are disgusting people. They heavy drug consumption, and that's like the the light part. It's not even like heavy drug consumption. It's like they use drugs to control people. And that's not even one of their like crimes. That's just something they do. The bad parts are I probably shouldn't mention on stream or explain. Yeah, but they're like killing, torturing, a lot of indecencies, let's say. YouTube is not so friendly to these things. And they do not have reservations about size. Yeah, let's go with that. They are just like very clearly, very, very clearly represented as being the bona fide worst, to put it lightly.
A tactical advantage.
So when Paul overthrows them, it's like, yeah, Paul's the hero.
Interesting.
He was the prophesized one, like, how else could it be? Well, the author apparently did not want Paul's story to come out as, oh, he was the hero. Which is why it sounds like, which is why the rest of the series exists. Because in the second book, Paul essentially, as a character, dies. The second book is, it's written in a way that seems like it was a continuation of the first 3 acts of Dune. So it's pretty seamless, but it's also after a time skip. And there's some notes. There are some notes that show that there were changes to make it more obvious on what was trying to be said. So, and these aren't like retroactive changes. These are like he's highlighted things. Because in the last part of Dune, Paul actually himself says, I am not this. I am not this. Like, I'm not what was prophesized. I am something more. I am something worse. Because when he arrived, and when he realized what he was, how do I word this? We have a barracks. When he realized what he was, how do I explain? This is why typically when you talk about like books like Dune, you need a script. Because how do I even succinctly explain what happens? It's literally, you know what, give me a bit. Give me a bit. Dogs, I need you. I need my scouts. This is a weird mission. Like, we're not getting like assaulted. We're just passing through. Maybe that's the point. Yeah, I do want to end. So Paul makes a point at the end of the book, or more so Frank, the author, Frank Hubert, makes a point for Paul to essentially say, I am not what was prophesized. Because what was prophesized was, by Bene Gesserit, they were like, they have been looking, because the Bene Gesserit are made up entirely of wood. So they're known as witches. they're known to like, oh, they have these tricks and this magic. The major magic thing that you see in the early parts is the voice, which is literally just as it says. They have a power of basically vocalizing commands that compel you to listen. So if they say sit, your body will essentially listen, even though you don't want to follow the command. It's essentially just like super compulsion. So that's like their main quote-unquote magic. The other one, which I believe is a spoiler, I believe, I don't remember when it's mentioned because it's been so long, is that the Bene Gesserit become Reverend Mothers. They actually gain access to all of their... They gain access to essentially their genetic memory. And so they have access to the memories and lives of everyone who came before them. And so they have like this like super retro and introspection. And this kind of like develops throughout the series, like that their entire faction becomes more and more fleshed out, especially after the fourth book, which is the most, probably the most divisive one because it's so weird. And so their entire goal as an all-female group is the prophesized something Haderach. You know what? I can... Kwisatz Haderach. Pronunciation. I'm gonna get a computer as I sit.
These phrase, meaning or translated literally as shortening of the day. Kwisatz Haderach.
Kwisatz Haderach. I did not expect. I don't know what just happened. Kwisatz Haderach is basically a male Reverend Mother. So they have the genetic memory as well. Don't worry about it. I don't know why his voice was like that. Where are all the enemies? I'm so lost. Right? That's fine. They've got to be somewhere, you know? But yeah, and so the idea is the Bene Gesserit, they only have access to male memories. Sorry, female memories. And so the idea of... Actually, fact check. This was explained in the first book. But, I don't remember if that's true. To unlock genetic memory. Yes, okay, but only of that of female ancestors. So, the Bene Gesserit only have access to the genetic memory and memories of female ancestors. So, Kwisatz Haderach? Kwisatz? I just heard it pronounced and I'm messing it up. Has access to both. Because people who've done a Punnett Square know, men have the have the X and Y chromosome genetically. So, memory-wise, in universe, they can have the genetic memories of both men and women ancestors. And this genetic memory is unlocked with, of course, spice, specifically the spice agony, which is like, it's like a mind awakening ritual using the spice. And so Paul goes through that and he gets the genetic memory. So he is what they prophesized. Now the problem was their prophecy didn't really... He wasn't really aimed by their prophecy. I don't know if it was ever explained what they were trying to seek from getting essentially a male Bene Gesserit. I think really what it comes down to is they were like, oh, if we can do it, it'd be great, because we don't have access to the male genetic memory. So when it happened, they're like, oh, but that doesn't mean Paul has to do, well, anything they want him to do. And so, Paul overthrows the government in the first book. I mean, like, he becomes the government. So in Dune, and for most of the books, every known part of the universe is controlled by the Empire, which is headed by the Emperor, of course. And so in the first book, the Empire is the villain. And at the end of the first book, the Emperor is who Paul overthrows. The Harkonnens are essentially, they're barren. They're one of the noble families, and they're the ones who were controlling Dune, because obviously there's a lot of plot points to cover if we're going that route. Let's not for now. But all you need to know for this conversation is that Paul becomes emperor. He overthrows, and he is what was prophesized, but he's something more, which is, I think, the quote exactly. And so, in the second book, what changes is, essentially, there is now a religion that surrounds Paul. And one of the things that Paul didn't want to do in the first book explicitly was to cause a jihad. And in Dune, essentially a jihad is a reoccurring, like, war sweep. Because it's, one of the previous ones was the Butarian jihad. And the Butarian jihad, what happened was, essentially there was a lot of robotics and cyborgs, and I don't know if it's explicitly said what ignited the flame, but the Butarian jihad was essentially a wipeout of machine intelligence. And after the Butarian jihad, no machine, like society-wide, no machine should have the intelligence of a human. Now, Paul's existence and control of the Empire caused another jihad, and that was something in the first book he was worried about, and he was just like, I won't do it, I won't do it. And one of the side effects of being, essentially, being male witch, in the spice agony, for him specifically, was presence. Future sight. He could see the future. And so he could see that his existence would cause a jihad in the first book. But in the first book, at the end, he overthrows the Emperor without killing, with very little bloodshed. Especially since the Emperor decided to come down to Dune, because of how, like, space travel and war worked at that point. It was also, like, Paul was leading the Freemen, which are just like native inhabitants. Oh, I can make units! Oh, are we in a pincer? Yeah, okay. I see. That makes more sense. But yes, in the second book, one of the explicit things is that the jihad happened. The thing that Paul was worried about came to be. And there was, like, probably nothing he could do about it. And that's his, like, entire inner struggle for the second book, is that jihad is happening, like, live. Like, his death troopers, literally, are sweeping throughout the known universe and, like, slaughtering and taking control of everything. And so, despite being able to see the future, Paul couldn't do anything about it. The jihad happened anyways. And now there's, like, this religious fervor around him because, oh, he's exactly what the Freeman prophesized. But, like, he has his power and it's basically worthless. And so the second book is all about showing that Paul, while he's not a terrible person, because he is not a happy boy in the second book, because of what he did, and the fact that he knew it was coming, and he literally was just, I can't do anything. But he's not a hero. He's not a hero. Literally, it's the Sephiroth meme of, oh no. I didn't save you. You're under new management. But it wasn't his choice. Be wise to put on some nearby mountains. Okay. Is this a mountain? I don't know. Yippee. Okay. I think that might have been a mountain, I don't know. I think I can hover over it to see. That is not a mountain. I am crazy. I'm literally insane. Where were those attacks coming from? I thought maybe it was interesting. Okay. Anyways, and so that's the second book. It's essentially, kind of think of it as like Paul's nightmare. So the second book, I think, is pretty good. The only problem is that if you read the second book, you're now locked in. Which is why I only recommend the first book. Because, yeah, it's a lot. The second book is pretty short, though. And so, those books are pretty consistent. The only inconsistent thing is that the first book has a time skip. Which is weird, because it's between the second and third act. I wasn't too big of a fan of that time skip, to be honest. But it was a pretty long book, so I kind of understand why. The intermediate part probably wasn't necessary. for like story reasons, but it felt weird there being a time skip there. And then between Dune 1 and Dune 2, there's a time skip as well.
This should do the trick.
Now, the second to third book is where things get weird. The third book is about Paul's children and about the start of the Golden Path. And the Golden Path is the rest of the series. And it is where the series gets weird. Because the first and second book... The third book... Okay, so the second book... The second book kind of feels like a TV series. Let me kill this guy. Because the first book feels like a series... I think... There's an argument the first book could either feel like a movie or a TV series. I think it feels more like a TV series. The second book feels like a TV series. And then the third book is... It's oddly structured, but it still feels like a TV series. And then that's where the continuity... Like, that's where, like, the continuous, like, feeling the Dune books give you ends. The third book is probably my least favorite in terms of writing. Yeah, it's my least favorite in terms of writing. But I think it's because it's kind of a whole nothing. It's about the children of Paul and what they decide to do. They are twins, which of course, in almost any sci-fi or fantasy setting, bad. Twins are usually not a good sign.
This should be advantageous.
And this is the book where Paul's son, Leto the second, because Paul's grandfather was Leto the first, decides that he really likes worms. And so this is the book that it's explained how spice and worms are related. And so there are small worms, because before this, it was essentially said that no one knew where the worms were coming from, but there had to be a source. And there were smaller, not quite worms, called sand trout that were, I guess, probably just look like small worms. Sand trout are baby worms. And so what Leto does is he lets the sand trout essentially eat him. And this is explained live. So he puts a sand trout like on his arm and he pulls it up like a sleeve. And he does this for every arm, limb, until he is completely surrounded by worm flesh. This is when the series gets weird. Sand trout feed on water. This is why Dune is a desert. And through consuming water, they cause desertification. This is important because both sand trout and worms die in water. So the sandshell eat it, and the worms are like petrified of it. And so, guess what is made of water? Human flavored water. No more you. Dog, I need you over here. So yeah, Leto decides to become part worm. And he gets like superhuman strength. He can burrow through sand like a worm and like what are those?
Lightning blast!
Emmerich might die. That's not good. Dogs. Oh no. I might have thrown. Uh-oh. Yeah, that's not good. No, are you? I know it's not. No one at all saw that. Okay. But yeah, so Leto becomes the worm god. And the worm god, I think, is the part that's divisive about the rest of the Dune series. Is Leto, God Emperor, is the entire fourth book. And he's essentially the ultimate legacy of his father, Paul. Which is why Paul is something more. Not only did he cause a jihad that killed billions, literally billions. Like, billions doesn't even begin to describe the untold many that were murdered in the spreading of his armies. He also is the father of God Emperor Leto II, the tyrant, the worm god. And he's known for being the tyrant and the worm god because he was in control for 3,500 years. And he kept the empire stagnant. And the fourth book is the end of his reign. And it is... There's so many weird details. I can't even explain it all because a lot of it doesn't make sense. As I said, the first 3 books are like a TV series. They don't quite feel like movies, especially the third one, but I think that's just because the third one is my least favorite. Or just the one I don't like as much. I wonder how many enemies are over here. This might be a bad idea. Let's see. So the entire Worm God thing... Whoa! Damn!
I have a spell for this.
These dogs are crazy. This could be bad. I don't really know what my... I guess I have to defeat the leader? I don't know where he is. Yeah, I have no idea. Cute doggy. Oh, that was a lot of talking about dude. Let's get... These dogs are kind of strong. Oh. Oh, okay, that's better. Yeah, let's, do that. Okay. So yeah, that's the part that Doom becomes weird, because the fourth book, I don't even know if you can make a TV show out of it. It would be a really weird TV show. Oh, okay. Damn. Oh, there he is. Uh-oh. I found the victory condition. Just have to kill that man. Ugh. So yeah, so the fourth book and on... Actually, you know what? No, it's just the fourth and the sixth book. The third book, the only reason it'd be divisive is that it's just alright. There's some cool parts about it, but I wouldn't say I particularly enjoyed it. I think the dog just wins. Yeah. Dog win. And I can't really say definitively why the third book. Oh. Oh. He now says the victory conditions, huh? Probably should have done that earlier. But yeah, the third book, it's just... I think it has probably it's both the most bearing on the plot and the least bearing on the plot. Because Leto is like literally the catalyst for the rest of the series.
This should protect us.
I think we should just go over you. But a lot of the other details that happen in that book are just kind of like... whatever. Like one of them is, oh, one of them is like Paul isn't actually dead. He's like the prophet, which is like, okay, like I guess it's interesting, but it's not really much else. Let's see. Wow, the dogs are so strong that I can't even one-shot them.
This should do the trick.
Like one of, okay, so Paul has a sister in the first book. I'm not going to fully explain the sister, but the sister is... The problem with the books of Dune is that each of them are like 600 pages, except the second book that's only like, I think it's like about 300. And like the first three are all sequential, so they all happen within like a few decades, or like not even that. Yeah, a few decades. And so to explain one thing, I would have to explain like another book entirely. So I'm not gonna worry too much about it. Basically, her mind is taken over by like the villain from the first book, and I don't really get like the long-term like story implications of it. I think there's probably some, but I don't think it's a huge thing.
I have a spell for this.
Oh, archers. I thought they were...
This should do
That wasn't very good strategically. Probably could have used that crit. Let's see. I'm sorry, dogs. Is that the Minecraft horse noise? I swear. Okay.
I have a spell.
Oh! But yeah, like, he takes over her mind. The Baron Harkonnen from the first book. In the third book, takes over her mind. Not like entirely, but completely corrupts her. So it was cool, it was interesting, but what does this mean? Like, I guess it could just be interesting. But with Dune, it's hard to discern between, oh, this was just interesting, or, oh, this was vital to the plot. Close. We're getting closer. I think that's a countdown too. This feels way more impactful than oh, so close. Oh, never mind. Yes. I can just force spam you all day.
It will catch you.
Creepy. Go on to comps.
Trespasser.
Oh, is this gonna be a misunderstanding now? How did I have... Okay. I don't know how I got an A on that one. Oh, it's a split in the road. Alone in the woods, Caesar finds some villagers in need of aid. So that's the dog mission. Emmerich faces a new Floran threat. I see. So we have the dog mission and one. I have spent a lot of time talking about Dune and not in like complete sentences. I think that'll be it for today. We literally only did one mission. That's alright. I'm also realizing that was kind of in the way. It's alright. Just leave it there for now. But yeah, we'll just leave it at that for today. To finish my thought, yeah, the third book. So if I was to rank the books, the third book would be at the bottom. Because I think it's just alright. Like, all the writing in Dune is good. Third book, I think it's more of like the story is weak. Like, there's cool things that happen, but like as a cohesive story, it's just set up for the fourth book. Wrong. The third book is the second from the bottom. It is fifth. The sixth is the last book. The last book of Dune, Chapter House. The third book is Children. I have it on my shelf, but Dune book 3. What is it? Children of Dune. Children of Dune is fifth because it's just alright. Dune Chapter House is sixth because it is the least satisfying book I have ever read. And I'm not saying that the ending is bad. The ending is actually one of the better parts of the book, and even then it's not great. I'll talk about the sixth book another day, because I just read it, and it's my least favorite. I think after that, fourth... Fourth would probably be the fourth book, God Emperor. It's definitely the weirdest book, and I think it's a book that I won't forget. But it's a difficult reading experience, and I can't say it's any better than fourth. Beyond that are books that I think are good. The third is the second book, which is Messiah, which ironically is about Paul not being a Messiah. And then the second one is the fifth book, which was a breath of fresh air after the third and fourth book, and then it crashed to the ground in the sixth book. Because the fifth book is a lot like the original Dune. It's a lot more complicated than the original Dune, in terms of like story and progression. But it has really good characters, which the third and fourth book kind of lacked, because the third book, all of the new characters died or were completely altered from previous books. And then the fourth book, none of the characters remain after the fourth book, except Duncan. And so the fifth book and sixth book can have continuous characters, which was great. And I think he spent more time on the characters because of that. Only problem is the sixth book ended up being my least favorite. And then at the top, of course, is the original. Because that's actually genuinely one of my favorite books. Well, yeah, I think next time, if I won't talk about Dune next time. I think next time I talk about Dune, I'll make notes so I make more sense. At least to myself. But thank you for coming by and listening to me literally ramble. Because I think if it was any other topic, I would have done a better job explaining myself this stream. But unfortunately, the topic was Dune, and I didn't have notes or a specific book to talk about, to be honest. Next time I talk about Dune, it'll be on the sixth book specifically. Maybe not. I don't know. I'll think about it. But yeah, thank you for coming by. Next time, Monkey Game, Thursday, 8 p.m. PST. See you there. Yeah, have a good night. We didn't get anything done here.